Hey guys, it's Chase Porter here, and this is New Age Comics. How is everybody doing? It is Tuesday. That is the day of the week that I am broadcasting to you all from. And I apologize if I'm coming off a bit scrambled. I admit that I am. As usual, my life has been a total clusterfuck. And so on this Tuesday, I am recording a podcast about comics that came out on the 16th. And it's the 22nd. That's ridiculous. It's appalling. So apologies to anybody out there. But my week has been hella dummy stressful is how I would put it. And I'm also, to make matters worse, I'm recording this on a abridged schedule. I have to go to work here soon. So I thought I would crank this out pretty quickly. So real quick, if some of you guys follow me over on Twitter at New Age Comics Pod, you'll notice that I posted my recording status last night at like 1:30 in the morning. And I'm not recording at 1:30. It's actually 12 hours later. It's 1:50 in the PM. And that is because this is the shits, right? I literally set everything up. It's like about 10 minutes. I set everything up. I was so ready. I took the picture. I tweeted it. Y'all were loving it. No, I'm kidding. But y'all were replying, and I was like, all right, let's do this podcast. And I go up to the mic, and just fucking boom. I get hit with this like tired wave like I've never been hit before. And I mean, it makes sense. I was probably sleep deprived. I think I was going on 22, 23 hours awake at that point. So that was probably part of the reason. And I also hadn't eaten in a while. So I'm taking care of myself great over here. But let's talk about some comics. Enough of that. I'm just saying that's why this is a little non-prompt again this week. I apologize, and I'm trying to get them out more promptly. But yeah, I got some water, I got some coffee. I encountered some faculty members of the building on my way in, and had a good hoot and holler with them. So the energy is pretty good in the studio right now. But yes, 12/16, there were a lot of comics that came out. I picked up, hold on, a ton. Well, listen, that's all the books. I picked them all up. I think it was like 12 or something books that I am going to be talking about today. So if you're new here and you haven't tuned out already via my psychotic diatribe, we talk comics here. I go through my top 5 of the week every week. I talk about everything else in a rapid fire little segment. We do some comic news. I talk about what's coming out next week. It's all good fun. So if you like what I'm doing here, follow me on whatever you're listening to me on. And before we talk about any books, spoiler motherfucking warning. I'm spoiling every book in this stack. So go look at the comics that came out last week. And if you haven't read any and you don't want them spoiled, go ahead and read them and come back. But let us not have further ado and talk about some of the news that I got for you.
Now look, I want the real story.
So this will be kind of like a first for the news segment here, but I'm going to be talking pretty much about the DC solicitations for March. But I am tying it into some relevancy, and that is that DC's post-future state has been announced / revealed, and it is the Infinite Frontier. So in case you missed it, in January and February, DC is going to be rebooting pretty much all their goddamn comics into this 2099-like thing where it's going to be everything's in the future. There's going to be new characters. You know, it's been a whole hoot and holler. We've all been enjoying it. But now we know what is coming afterwards, and it is the Infinite Frontier. This also comes with DC actually cutting some of their titles, like cutting their total amount of titles down. Some series were canceled, some just ended and weren't, I guess, replaced, right? Most publishers replace some of their limited series with like an oscillating, if that's the right word, amount of limiteds. And that might not be happening here. We're down to 34 titles once we hit March. So there will only be 34 active books coming out from DC as of March. This is going to come with a lot of runs that actually get rebooted. and some creative team like musical chairs and shuffling around, if you will. So just getting into a lot of the books coming out, I'll just kind of list them off and give my thoughts on them. So as far as new runs go, first of all, we're getting an Infinite Frontiers 0 issue, which is going to have a whole slew of writers. It's one of those anthology books. So we're getting some Scott Snyder, Jeff Johns, James Tynion, Joshua Williamson, Jeffrey Thorne, Philip Kennedy Johnson, Brian Michael Bendis, Becky Cloonan, just to name a few. Not to mention loads of awesome artists. I didn't have any of the artists written down, just more so writers. I just kind of wanted to go over creatively where DC is heading in March. But in some exciting news, we're getting Batman Urban Legends issue number 1, a like new mini, or I don't know if it's gonna be a mini or an ongoing. But the exciting thing is we're getting 2 Marvel writers leading this series, Chip Zdarsky and Matthew Rosenberg. And this has kind of been teased. Chip was tweeting online like, I'm writing Batman. Everyone was happy. Matthew Rosenberg is going to be doing something with Grifter. So that ought to be something we should look out for. And this is also probably not news to anybody, but the Joker issue number 1 series, obviously it's going to be at number 1, but it's going to be an ongoing Joker series. So that's very interesting. It's going to be led by Tynion and Guillaume March. There is one artist for you. So that ought to be pretty exciting. Joker doesn't get a lot of, solo stuff. He's a villain. So this will be something to definitely pick up. We're also getting Harley Quinn issue number 1, and this will be written by a writer I've actually not heard of, but she seems to be pretty important over this like Future State Infinite Frontier business. It is going to be written by Stephanie Phillips. Stephanie Phillips, a writer I don't think I've actually heard of or read anything that she has written, but I am excited to see how she does on Harley Quinn. We'll see if I pick up that series. And she's writing a few more down the line here, but we're also getting Crime Syndicate issue number 1. This looks like kind of an interesting book. I did not recognize the writer, so I don't have it down here, but it looks like it's going to be a cool book, maybe a little Suicide Squad-y, a little, I don't know, the boys kind of. It seems like it's going to be a fucked up version of all of our favorite superheroes. But speaking of that, we also are getting a new Suicide Squad run. This is going to be written by Robbie Thompson. Should be interesting. I've enjoyed some of Thompson's work. We'll see if I snag it. Another anthology type book that we're also getting, and this is similar to one of the current books coming out for DC right now, but Superman Red and Blue issue number 1. This will be, I'm very much assuming, similar to the Batman Black and White run that's going on right now. That should be very cool. And another very cool run that I will definitely be getting is the new Swamp Thing issue number 1. And it is actually titled The Swamp Thing, not Swamp Thing, it's The Swamp Thing. And it's going to be written by Ram V with art by Mike Perkins. This will also be a series that is carried over creative team-wise from the Future State into the Infinite Frontier, because Ram V and Mike Perkins will be doing a Swamp Thing 2-parter in the Future State. So my guess is if I like those books, then I will most likely be continuing with the Swamp Thing. And lastly, 2 more runs that I've actually not really been following as of lately is they're going to be doing a Teen Titans Academy issue number 1 written by Tim Sheridan. I have not heard of that writer, but the Red X looks relevant, looks kind of neat, as well as Sensational Wonder Woman issue number 1. And this will be written by Stephanie Phillips. So she seems to be leading quite a few books coming out of this. But we'll also be getting some runs that actually continue that are currently going on, meaning they will be picking right back up with their issue number. And so the bunch of these are going to be, and this is kind of exciting, the Superman mythos is being taken over by a new writer. So unfortunate news, Brian Michael Bendis' Superman run is ending. Unfortunate for me. It's going to be picked up by Philip Kennedy Johnson and art by Phil Hester on both of those runs. That should be interesting. I'll definitely be continuing to see how he picks up the run. But, I might not enjoy it. And if that happens, hey, you know what happens. But we're also getting Batman to continue, obviously, with Tynion writing and Jimenez doing the art. So awesome. That'll be so good. We're also getting Detective Comics that will continue with a new creative team, Tamaki Markio, I believe. I only have her last name written down. And then Dan Mora doing the art on that. That should be super duper fun, and that is also a Future State carried over creative team. And then we're also getting Batman, Superman, written by Jean Len Yang, who is the current writer of Shang-Chi, and written some other books. Superman Smashes the Klan, all very cool, and Ivan Rice is going to be art on that. I may or may not get back into Batman and Superman. We'll have to see. Catwoman is continuing with Ram V. The Flash is going to be picked up now by Jeremy Adams, I believe. Someone else is currently writing the Joshua Williamson long run, I think. I don't know if it's Jeremy Adams or not. And then Justice League is going to be picking up with Brian Michael Bendis writing it. So you guys know what that means. I will be picking up Justice League starting at issue 59. So that's very cool. That's a first issue new series that I will be talking about. So that ought to be exciting. We'll see what I think about that. Another series I'm very excited for, and I will be picking up now, will be the new Nightwing creative team, which will be beginning at Nightwing 78, written by Tom Taylor and art by Bruno Redondo. I don't know if I know his art. I may have read something from him here or there, but that Tom Taylor, I'm very excited about Tom Taylor taking the reins of Dick Grayson. When it comes to both that Justice League and the Nightwing series, I honestly don't know why they didn't reboot it from the number one, why they didn't just kind of, start a new series. They don't want to do reboots. I get that. But I mean, hey, we're going through an entire Crisis event here, and a lot of series got rebooted. So beats me. But lastly, Wonder Woman will be continuing at 770 with Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad as the writer, with art by Travis Moore. So that ought to be really cool. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for the Infinite Frontier. There's a lot of books that, look pretty cool, and we're going to get a new design on the cover and everything. So I am excited. You all should be excited, and definitely try out at least one or two of these books. And hey, I guess the first thing we'll be receiving is that Infinite Frontier one-shot. So that is where this conversation will be picked up again. So enough about all the comic news. Let's get into the actual comics, and I'll be starting with my rapid fire did not make the top 5 comics. And I have actually a good grip here that didn't make it. Now that X of Swords is out of the way, I'm not chunking more and more comics into the top 5. So let's kick off with Batman issue 105. This is, I think, the end of the Ghost Stories arc, kind of the Ghost Maker arc. And that's a little exciting. I don't think we'll be getting this Batman run till 106, funny enough, as I was just talking about. So I liked the end of this arc. It had a bit of one of those rushed endings, I guess you could say. But I ultimately like, where they went with it. Ghostmaker and Bruce kind of made up a little bit and realized, hey, we're not too different, you and I. One of those type of things. So it was definitely cool. The Ghost Stories arc was awesome. So everybody should be reading Batman. You could maybe call this one an upset. The Wolverine Black, White, and Blood issue number 2. I loved the first issue. I gave it one of the positions on the top 5. And I mean, this one was cool. I think some of the stories were just a little less memorable. Unfortunately, this could be one of those cases where I read it very tired, and so I just literally don't remember any of it. But the Chris Claremont story was cool. I was kind of wanting a little more. But the next issue will have a mini from one and only Donny Cates. So I am very hyped for the third issue, and I mean, this issue was still cool. A pretty interesting comic from this week, Rorschach number 3. I've been loving this series so far, and this issue was pretty good. It was pretty dense, I will say that. Nothing against a dense comic or anything, but this comic was pretty much the story of the girl who's accompanying Rorschach, her origin story, if you will, in typical Watchmen fashion. So it was one of those things where a lot of information, and a lot of that information I think will kind of roll back and be relevant eventually. And so, this is just more world building, and that's always cool. Next up, we have Savage Avengers issue number 13. This is kind of the end of the whole, I don't know, dragon fight arc, I guess, if you could call it an arc. And it was pretty cool. I mean, Conan came through, kicked some ass. That's what I love to see. And he was my MVP for this issue. I love when he turned down wearing the Eye of Agamotto. That was fucking awesome. And there's just the whole, I don't fuck with sorcery. I don't want Crom to think that I need anything. Just, I love Conan. And getting to see him party at the end was also great. But I'm excited for the King in Black next issue. That ought to be sweet. A finale here that unfortunately wasn't good enough to make the top 5, in my opinion. Superman issue number 28. I controversially like the Bendis Superman stuff. And I will say, I mean, I liked this issue. It was really cool. I think the ending was, I don't know, it was a little like anticlimactic for me when I think about it. I don't know. I was expecting more emotion, I guess, out of the whole Eisno Alcor stuff. And it seems like Superman eventually just kind of beat him. I don't know. Maybe that's just my thing. I need to reread it again, but not a bad run at all. And the cover's phenomenal. So yeah, that's my thoughts. The next 3 issues definitely struggled and were honorable mentions, all in their own right for the top 5. So I loved all these next 3. And first off, we're talking about Immortal Hulk, number 41. This issue was so cool. It was the Thing and the Hulk fighting, which was set up in the last issue. And I mean, Ewing just writes the hell out of every single character. You know, and sometimes literally he writes characters into hell. So, but this issue was great. Definitely was, you know, one of those issues that I was reaching for. I really wanted to throw in the top 5, but I had to give it to the comics that I did. So yeah, but Immortal Hulk is awesome. Now we're hitting penultimate issue status, and this is Dark Knight's Death Metal issue number 6 with the foil cover and everything. Dark Knight's Death Metal has been fucking nuts. That is news to nobody. But I liked this issue. It had some cool moments, but compared to where the last issue left off and where we are now, we didn't really get anywhere, I guess. You know, well, hey, the last page here is fucking nuts, don't get me wrong. But pretty much at the end of the last issue, we were ready for war, and at the end of this issue, I'm still just ready for war. But hey, they set up, I think, everything masterfully for the final issue number 7. So I am very excited to talk about number 7 when that comes out. This will be probably my most honorable mention, if that makes sense, but it is Batman's Grave issue number 12. I have been, you know, reading Batman's Grave since it came out about 12 months ago. I'm not sure if any of it was delayed at any point, but this could be considered maybe my thoughts on Batman's Grave as a whole, but specifically, if we're to talk about this finale issue, it was fucking amazing. If you've been reading this series, you know what makes each issue so awesome, and it's just the like action, because a lot of it is silent. A lot of it's silent issues. And first of all, I'll get into this a little later. A hearty hard tease. I love silent issues, and so this whole run was just a total blast. And to specifically kind of get into the ending there, I mean, shit, did Batman die at the end there? I mean, they ended it ambiguously. You don't know. And obviously this is kind of alt universe, kind of standalone, because Alfred is, you know, in it and everything. But I don't know. Just the ending was great. I liked the kind of, you have to walk away and just kind of think, you know, it's called Batman's Grave. But the last issue was great. The antagonist that Warren Ellis sets up here is actually really cool. I could see him being, I mean, shit, returned if he really wanted to be. So yeah, overall, I really liked Batman's Grave. It was an awesome 12-parter. And it's probably a really quick read, like an afternoon read for sure. So if anyone is looking for just a super exciting, really fun Batman story, please do yourself a favor. Check out Batman's Grave. Buy the trade when it comes out. Buy the hardcover, because this run is really good with art by Brian Hitch the whole way. It's just super duper fun. So those are my thoughts on this great run. Gosh, do you ever just be like really hungry, but you're not like keeling, like, oh my God, I have to eat, but your stomach is just like growling and growling and growling. That is where I'm at. I hope the mic has not picked up how like loud my stomach has been, but I'm forcing through the hunger here, and we're gonna get into my top 5. So without further ado, let's start with number 5. I'm giving this one to X-Force number 15, written by Benjamin Percy, drawn by Joshua Cassara, the amazing Joshua Cassara, and then colors by the very prolific Guru FX. So this is, I think, my first X book since X of Swords ended. Some of you on my Twitter were upset with me that I wasn't picking up all the X books. And alas, I apologize. I would love to be getting every single X book right now, but I don't got the funds, unfortunately, and I do not have the time to read it. So, hey, if you want me to get more books, here's how you can support me. You can support the podcast, because inevitably it'll hit a point where I can start to use the podcast to be an excuse to buy more books. Okay. Anyway, X-Force 15, my return to the X-Men lore since X of Swords. Unfortunately, as far as X-Force goes, they kind of pretend like X of Swords never happened, which makes me not upset, I guess, but I was a little disappointed by that. I won't lie. I like Aftermath issues. I don't know. I'm a big events guy. Like, I love reading events. Events are super duper fun. That's why I get all of them, just because I love the crossover aspect. I mean, that's something that's super prevalent in my preferences. I love the connectedness and the continuity of comics and how they all exist in the same universe. You'll notice that if you think about my reactions to certain comics. But I was really ready for some Aftermath shit, for them being like, God damn, that was rough. We lost some people. But alas, I mean, I'm still giving this my number 5. So that is my critique out of the way. We're back on the Russian espionage arc, which was continuing prior to X of Swords. And thinking about it, they might have kind of like ended, or I don't know, started tying into X of Swords kind of randomly now that I think about it. I might have been overswept with like the woo of X of Swords that maybe I forgot that X-Force was just like embroiled in a current story arc at the moment. But yes, we're doing more with the Russian like espionage group. It's actually been a connecting theme throughout all of Benjamin Percy's books, actually, specifically X-Force, and I think a little bit into his Wolverine series, because here we're actually getting more follow-up on the Wolverine vampire plot that was teased actually before that was tying into X of Swords with Omega Red, right? I loved those issues way back in the day. But what also is returning is Beast being back on his scheming, borderline villain shit. One of my absolute favorite things about this current X-Force run is Beast is taking the most morally ambiguous fucking like plays and playing them. And it's such a joy to watch. He does it in this issue so many times. In some super awesome ways, which I will get into. But this is also a big Colossus issue, which, you guys know my friend Ian. He is the Colossus guy, and he has lamented that the Dawn of X reboot hasn't really included Colossus all that much, which is unfortunate. And here, not that we get, a ton of inclusion from Colossus, because the thing is, he is off of Krakoa. He's in Russia. He doesn't want to live in Krakoa. He has a portal, but he is in this book quite a bit because he gets his mind read because he's Russian, and they're trying to see if they have what's the word? I guess turned Colossus into like a double agent, I believe, or if he knows anything about what the Russian crew is doing. And when Colossus gets his mind read by Jean Grey at Beast's behest, it kind of pisses Colossus off. I mean, obviously it would. And so he walks away sad boys and kind of hates Beast forever now, which, hey, that's going to be played out a little more. And it even does get played out a little more at the end of this issue. But Beast continues to just be so morally schemy and morally vague all the time. And his current plan is that they want to turn, I guess him and Wolverine kind of came up with this, they want to turn Omega Red, who they have captured, into a double agent for the vampires. They want to, it's so nuts. They full spoiler here, they actually kill Omega Red in this issue, and they're going to resurrect him as not remembering all of this stuff. They're going to implant him with something that has like audio and video trackers, and they're going to send him back to the vampires. And I guess the mesmerization that happens from vampirism is going to keep all of, I don't know, I guess this under wraps, and they're going to be able to turn him into a double agent and find out what's going on. And one of my favorite moments in this book is the little I guess like I don't know what the name of it is, but like the book page, like the you can't call it back matter because it's not in the back, but like the back matter pages, because in this one it's Beast requesting authority to perform this very action. And it's so wild because Xavier, his stance on it is X-Force has full authority, like complete Black Ops level, like you guys can do whatever you need to do to get the shit done, which is the exact reason I fucking love this run so much. And the cool thing too is that the other people of the Quiet Council object. They object to this X-Force request, and Xavier just literally cuts it off and says, to clarify, unless otherwise noted, X-Force has absolute authority on this matter. Just shuts them all the fuck up. And so that is just, I just love that. And Hank, he's working all of this out. He wants to apologize to Colossus for, I don't know, this breach of trust. And it's actually a really sad scene. He brings him, if you all know Colossus, you know he loves to paint. And he brings Colossus a bunch of Krakoan paints. And this girl who has control over water almost kills him by pulling the water out of his body, kills Hank, but gives him his water back. And Colossus takes the paint and pretty much is like, thank you. Like, I've forgiven you. Like, go away. You know, and that was just super sad because, I mean, that's my thing, is that Beast is my favorite fucking X-Men. And so when I get to see him be a villain, I love it. But when he when he experiences the repercussions, I hate it. I mean, I don't know. That's gonna be what happens. But this issue ends off with something kind of interesting, with like a zombie beach party is how I have it noted in my notes here. But it's with Domino and Tom Cassidy. Kind of random, kind of connects to something that Colossus did earlier. He like threw like a zombie egg or something into the river. I don't know why. But hey, that's the next issue, I think, is going to be this zombie stuff and whatever's going on with Colossus and Beast being evil as hell. So I love the X-Force. I thought it was awesome. It's continuously just such a great book. So definitely go pick it up if you aren't reading it. The number 4 spot is going to King in Black, Immortal Hulk, issue number 1. Written by Al Ewing, drawn by the amazing Aaron Kuder. I fucking love Aaron Kuder's art. And then, of course, you have to mention the colors by Frank Martin and Eric Arciniega. But King in Black, Immortal Hulk, combination, tie-in, all of that. And like I foreshadowed earlier, this is a silent issue, a completely silent issue. Not a word, not a goddamn word appears in this comic. And to me, I was like, okay, I'm going to love this comic. I don't know why I like the silent issues, man. Of course, I'm lazy. I don't like to read. I mean, I do like to read, but I mean, hey, come on. We all like the silent issues. Like, give me a break. We all like to just be able to flip and look at the art. Like, come on. But anyway, I'm getting off my soapbox here. Aaron Kuder's art was the perfect artist. He is the perfect artist for a silent issue for me. I love his art so much. Ever since I first saw his art on the all-new Guardians of the Galaxy, one of the first random series I ever kind of just picked up off a whim, I've always been into Aaron Kuder. His Ghost Rider is so fucking great. I'm so sad that run got canceled. But anyway, this is also a Christmas issue, which, hey, if you guys want to get to know me a little, not a big Christmas guy. Sorry, I'm just not big into the holidays. But that being said, I like kind of the Christmas issue vibes. It's just kind of like I don't know, especially if you're reading it around Christmas time, you kind of just are like, okay, yeah, it's the same vibe. It feels cool. It feels continuous. But this is also, I have to say, one of the cutest goddamn Hulk issues ever, which is so weird. Immortal Hulk is not known for being cute. It is known for being fucked up and nightmare fuel. But this issue has, you know, a little bit of that, but it's very cute. So it ties in a little bit with the current Immortal Hulk run where Hulk is kind of like thin. I don't know, he's like depowered kind of. And is very thin, and his brain is more akin to like a child. Obviously, this gets more into like the Al Ewing mythos that he has built. And so the full picture of this issue is it's depowered, childlike Hulk wandering the Christmas city streets during a event where God has come to Earth and slimed everything. That's kind of the pitch to this issue. And all of that without words. And just because it does not have words, the storytelling here is still, and I don't mean this lightly, fucking like masterful. The story, that's what I love about silent issues half the time, is they have to figure out ways to tell the story more visually. You know, I remember back during the Marvel Knights era, there was this, I believe there was like a week where every book that came out or every series had to do like one silent issue because Joe Quesada and Jim Pimiotti, they like declared a dare to all of the to the writers saying, hey, if you're really a good storyteller, you can tell a silent issue. I remember Bendis did it in Daredevil. I'm pretty sure Grant Morrison did it in X-Men. There was, I think, another run that did it. And I mean, that was awesome. And Joe Quesada or whoever dared it, their point is so true. If your storytelling is really that high quality, you can do it without words. And Al Ewing, he fucking does it without words here because the story is awesome. Basically, the story is that Hulk wants a present. He's acting like a child, right? He wants a present, and symbiotes fuck all of it up. They fuck all of his plans up to get a gift. He ends up running around town, fighting some cops, you know, and he's just like so innocent and childish, I guess, throughout this. That's something that the storytelling like lends to in some of the best ways. Like I don't know, he's just so innocent and adorable, I guess, because he's Child Hulk right now. Like he literally just wants toys. That's literally all he wants in this issue. But we get some great fucking storytelling here because there's this scene where Hulk goes to this mall and he sees like a toy, I don't know, thing, like a toy setup. And it reminds him of the same exact toy setup he had as a child. And now, boom, this connects to the Ewing run via some of the like abuse that we've seen Bruce go through. And so instantly Hulk kind of like wigs out and has an emotional temper tantrum. And it's just like that storytelling was all done without words. That's just so amazing. And then there's even just some really good like sequential storytelling here. Like there's after this scene, he transforms back to Joe Fixit because Bruce is kind of gone right now. And Joe Fixit steps in some like glass, and they show how he leaves like a bloody trail, and this symbiote thing that's hunting him, it follows the trail. But it's just like, that's such a cool way to show like the pursuit, you know, without words, just the trail being followed. And then it goes, you know, full Dead Rising mode, throwing to one of my favorite games out there, because they're walking around the mall and they have this little squabble where Joe fucks the symbiote up in a pretty awesome way. He does the whole like sound and fire via like a music speaker and some like aerosol can on a lighter. And so that was just all pretty cool. And I mean, Aaron Cooter is taking super ambitious like moves here, trying to tell, you know, it's just snapping on every panel. So the art is just astounding, jaw-dropping. All to follow to the cutest last panel ever, with Hulk finally getting to just sit and play with toys. And this is all, like I've said, told in no words or anything, and just a great silent issue. And all that being said, it's a tie-in to an event. Obviously, it's not super, you know, integral to the story of the event or anything. It's just a great story. So definitely pick up this tie-in. Even if you're not reading King in Black, you don't even really need to be reading it. And so, yeah, if you love silent issues, go for it. Giving the bronze medal this week to a returning title, Iron Man issue number 4, written by Christopher Cantwell, drawn by Kei Fu, and colors by Frank D. Armata. Yeah, I've been loving this series. If you guys have been listening for a minute, you know this. I've pretty much given every issue like high regards. And it's just a great reboot on Tony Stark. You know, it was much needed, just a fresh mind on the character, kind of revamps him all for all of us. You know, we can all just step in fresh-footed. This is the first Iron Man ongoing that I've ever, you know, been reading. I've read Iron Man stories in the past for sure. But, you know, as far as an ongoing goes, I never wanted to get into the last series because it was all convoluted and confusing with like Tony in a coma or something. Let's not even go down that path. But the last issue left us off with a mighty cliffhanger for Patsy. She was electrocuted or something. Her heart flatlined, very emotional. And we get our answers in this issue. And that's not the only thing we get here. Tony, he gets a little. God, now I'm getting really juvenile. But Tony and Hellcat, they tie the physical knot. I don't know. They shag. They have sex. And it gets pretty steamy. But that's not where the issue picks up. Of course, they have a whole conversation beforehand. And Patsy, and I know this is a lot to be just thrown right into for sure. Especially the last time we saw Patsy, we thought she might not make it. But she has recovered from her wound, I guess, and it has left a pretty bad scar on her face. And that's kind of the first main reveal throughout the beginning of this book. Her and Tony have this conversation, though, where, I don't know, I think they both just kind of connect in this moment of, I guess, trauma. And Patsy is saying that she likes the man underneath, and this gets very metaphorical. She likes the man underneath the armor. And this is what leads to them shagging a little bit. But I mean, hey, I ship them. I fully ship them, so I'm with it. But another thing in this issue is that James Rhodey, War Machine, has gone missing, but is later found captive by Korvac. And Korvac is going through a humongous god complex spike right now. And this lends to a lot of religious iconography in this issue, and I love that shit. I'm all with the religious iconography. I went to a private school. I will just get that out there. In high school, I went to one, and I'm not super into, I guess, all the religious stuff myself, but learning about religion and the stories and everything has helped me greatly appreciate the references that are thrown out in certain stories. So, for instance, the first reference was that Blizzard, who is kind of a villain following Korvac, sort of one of his lieutenants, he points out that he loves the angel statues that are lining the ceiling. And this is very metaphorical because they're the angels, and Korvac is thinking he's God. And in some sense, Blizzard is one of the angels to this god, so there's that parallel there. And Korvac throws out a bunch of references left and right. He tells Rhodey the story of Paul, where Korvac tells Rhodey, once the scales fell from Paul's eyes, he became Christ's greatest servant. Kind of trying to speak that into existence with Rhodey. Of course, Rhodey tells him off, which is an awesome scene. But this isn't even the most blatant of it. We get a scene later where he literally crucifies himself. So you can't get more overt with the religious references than that. And he, not only that, refers to it as his final station, which, hey, if that's a little bit of Catholic lore, I guess you could say, the stages or the stations of Christ. It was basically all the I don't know, milestones of him walking with the cross to be, crucified. And so he literally refers to it accurately under this story. And then he also gives us a pretty intense Nikola Tesla quote where he says, "The present is theirs. The future, for which I really worked, is mine," is how I heard that. And how a crazy God complex psycho would say that. And of course, you had to expect this one. He throws up an amen before he gets electrified, blasted, crucified with basically all the electricity in all of New York gets drawn to him. And it's an amazing sequence, So a super awesome kind of moment. The dialogue is just so cutting and awesome. And throughout that scene, we're learning more about Korvac's kind of plan here. And all we kind of learn is that he's tracking the Ta-2 ship, which is the ship of Galactus. So I don't know what the fuck he's scheming. Has to do something with Galactus. I wonder if this will tie into the current Thor run where Galactus is, Ixnade right now. But cool thing, they tie back into the first issue of this run with the deaf guy that actually kicked Tony's ass in a street racing competition. But then at the end here, Patsy, she gets possessed, I guess, and she like laser blasts this car. The deaf guy, he KOs her, and it turns out that he's a mutant, and he has this really strange power of his heart rate will never go over 70. And yeah, I mean, kind of a strange ending. But what we get out of that is that apparently Korvac can control, it seems, whoever has been electrocuted or like marked by him. That's kind of, again, some more religious kind of iconography getting referenced. I wonder if that will apply to Tony. Remember, he was electrocuted. It was in his Iron Man suit, but he was electrocuted by Korvac back in the, I think, issue 3. But yeah, so the next issue will be very nuts. It might be kind of the end of this arc, or, you know, inching towards there. But I'm just loving this Iron Man run. I love Patsy as a side character. I'm very happy that Cantwell has brought her into my life, I guess. I mean, she wasn't in any books I was reading. And so I'm happy that Cantwell was like, this is a dope character with lots of potential that nobody's using. So let me throw her in, and hey, let me make her kind of an integral, maybe insertion into the Iron Man mythos. Something else I am learning more about through this run, which I think is totally fucking awesome. I never knew any Iron Man villains, any of them. I mean, can you name any other than the Mandarin? I sure as fuck can't, but now I can. So I love this run. Love everything that Cantwell is doing it. And it's one of those things where you didn't know you really needed it until you got it. For my number 2 spot, I am very excited to be presenting it to this comic, Blade Runner 2029, issue number 1. This is written by Mike Johnson and drawn by the same guys who did the amazing Blade Runner 2019 series that my hype is rolling out of into this issue. And those two guys are Andres Guinaldo and Marco Lesko. Yeah, this series is back. So Blade Runner 2019 went on for 12 issues the past year, and ended last month. Now we have, I guess you could call it year 2, and we're getting a significant time jump here, at least in title, to 2029, Blade Runner 2029. That 2019 series was easily one of my favorites of the last year, and you all know that because I won't shut the fuck up about it. But now, it is a few years later, like I said, a significant jump, at least in the title. I believe the 2019 series ended off actually in 2025, because I'm fairly sure there was actually a time jump in that series. So we're getting about a 4-year jump here. And if all of that wasn't convoluted enough, we start this issue in a flashback in 2017. Okay, lots of years being thrown around. But this 2017 flashback is a very, very amazing cold open. It was one of those moments where you feel like you can hear like the soundtrack to the scene, but ironically, what I heard was dead silence, because that's how tense this intro cold open is. Ash is hunting a replicant, and she walks into this, I guess, outfit parlor, which clearly has some black market thing going on, and confronts this replicant, and it gets crazy. Shots are fired left and right. The replicant does escape. His name is Jotun, and the only reason I'm even pointing any of that out is because it is relevant later. But now we flash back. We flash back forward. We flash forward to 2029 to an amazing splash page, I have to say. It takes the really far back perspective of like a humongous room, and it's just exactly what I like when it comes to some of the art in this book, is just these like vast, beautiful kind of scenery type moments. And here we have Ash again, still hunting. This time she's got a new haircut, which I was a little excited to see, and she has a new prerogative as well. She's not hunting down replicants to retire any at this point. She's actually liberating them. She finds this one replicant that seems to be essentially being sex trafficked, and it's actually a really great scene. And what this all does for, I guess, the storytelling perspective is that now we can kind of make the thematic connection to the events that Ash went through in 2019 in the new book, because that book began and she was full on like Blade Runner status, retiring replicants left and right. the events of the book changed her to the point where she now looks at replicants very sympathetically. And so I love that that's one of the things that did carry over, you know, because when they're rebooting a series, that's what you're kind of nervous about, right? Are they going to just water everything back down to like a standard level, and then it won't feel like the last, you know, year mattered? That is not what happens in Blade Runner. And how could I expect it to? Because the writing was so phenomenal in the first series. And another one of these carried over themes is Ash's back brace is still acting up, a very common thread throughout the whole 2019 series. And she's actually contemplating with her wife a life after running or Blade running. You know, she's talking about, well, one day the back brace will give out and she will no longer be able to run, as I have put it. And I like all of that. I think that's really foreshadowing, right? Like this is all leading up and foreshadowing to something, just kind of prophesizing her retirement. So what I'm really saying is that the time jump kind of plays very well in this new Blade Runner comic. They jump about 4 or 5 years, and you can feel the 4 or 5 years of time, kind of that time gap. However, she is still technically a runner, so she has been given a mission now to go hunt down some replicant that had escaped to a construction site or something, and she takes it over to one of the walls, I guess, and it's apparently a wall that's holding in some level of like flooding, so maybe like a dam or something. And I mean, I love this. It's, you know, kind of referencing that classic hallmark of any dystopian story. You know, just environmentalism, I guess, to wrap it up in one word, that eventually the environment will degrade because of us. And here the effects that she's experiencing are acid rain, which is actually really well worked into the next scene here, because she is trying to hunt and locate this replicant and can notice where they're at because they're not wearing protective gear, you know, given that they are a robot. Of course, right when the replicant and Ashina lock eyes, the chase kicks off. This whole issue, for this matter, especially this issue, is totally movie mode status throughout the whole thing. This chase is super cool. They run up to the top of one of the towers there, and this is where things get interesting. So the replicant is standing at the edge, right? And Ashina's thinking in her monologue, it could be an ambush. There could be something going on. All the replicant does is turn around very, very snidely and say, "Jotun redeems," and then just hurls himself off of this like tower. And he lands in like on a bunch of, I think, rebar is what it's called. Those like iron bars. Oh my God, that panel is super fucking like dark. Like on the front of all of these books, it says suggested for mature readers. And they certainly do sometimes dip into that territory. This was probably one of the like most mature moments so far. Just, oh God, I'm looking at it now and it's just very a violent panel. But I mean, wow. If that's not how to hook somebody, because this guy, I mean, if you didn't make the connection, he's name dropping the replicants that Ashina was hunting back in the flashback in 2017. And so what Ash has to do is look up his like information, and has to do it through analog. So they show her looking through a bunch of boxes and books, which is very cool. And there is your hook issue, I guess. If that's what all issue ones must be, then this issue hooked me line and fucking sinker. Obviously, I'm giving it my number 2 here. I loved this book. I thought it was a great execution of a follow-up. I'm going to make a weird analogy here, but this book kind of felt like the second Ghost in the Shell movie. If any of you have ever watched the Ghost in the Shell original movies, those are my favorite. I'm a big Ghost in the Shell guy. And the original 2 movies, the second film, has a lot of the same, I think, like transitional elements that this book does. Like, it's hard to describe. I'm not going to delve into it because it's a lot. It's a lot that I would have to delve into. But it takes if there is one thing I could say, it takes a little more reverent approach, I think, to the mythos, and puts the characters that we already know in some more like interesting moral situations, if that makes sense. If any of this shit makes sense that I'm spouting here. But all I can really leave off and say is that Ash has to be like easily one of my favorite characters in comics right now, just off the racks right now. So absolutely, guys, if you've heard it a million times from me, please read Blade Runner. The moment we have all been waiting for, my number one pick of the week. And is this a surprise? Is this a surprise to anybody? Come on. It's Taskmaster 2, written by Jed MacKay, drawn by Alessandro Vitti, and colors by Guru FX. I said he was prolific earlier. Wow. This fucking comic. Like, first of all, let's acknowledge Taskmaster is making New Age Comics history here, because I gave the first issue my number one, and now the second issue gets my number one. So that's twice in a row that like this series took the number one spot, and I think it's just the first series to ever take the number one spot multiple times. But that's all very deserving, because Taskmaster 1 was amazing. Super fun, super gritty, hilarious, makes you love Taskmaster already more than we all do. But if anything, it hooked me in really well. And here is the follow-up. And if you remember the plot at all to the first one, Taskmaster has to copy like the body language, I guess, of 3 of the most illustrious spies on Earth, right? The most difficult task. And this issue, he's going up against Phil Coulson. Apparently, they keep calling him Cheese. I do not know why. Maybe that's just some Phil Coulson lore I do not understand. But speaking of intros, the intro to this comic is fucking great. Obviously, we're all going to be biased. They go into a comic shop. But no, this scene was really awesome. I loved the visual effect that they did on the comics. I don't know why. It's like they photoshopped real comics like into it, like real covers, but they kind of like blurred them a little bit. And I don't know why. I just thought that was cool. I think it like reminded me a lot of I don't know. I feel like they did that a lot back in the day, like back in the old days of publishing. I don't know. I feel like I recognize like Marvel Knights era comics used to do that. So in that sense, maybe it just made me feel a little nostalgic. But here's the thing about Coulson. Apparently, he's like a villain right now in the comics. For some reason, I haven't read any of the like Coulson comics that are out there, some of the S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff and some of the more recent events. But he's been very villainous lately, given the current Avengers arc. And he's also been the leader of the Squadron Supreme, which is turning out to be kind of like the boys of the Marvel universe, because it's like a fucked up Justice League, right? And that is exactly the vibes that we get in this issue. The setup to this issue is perfect. So Taskmaster has to copy the body language of Coulson. So he has to just come into contact with him for a decent amount of time. But he can't alert him because Coulson will call in Hyperion. He's like the Superman of the bunch. And they make good goddamn sure that we all know Hyperion is not to be fucked with. Not to be fucked with. And based off the events in this issue, he is not. He is not to be fucked with. So we're all scared of him by the first few pages. And then the pacing is really great because we flash back and forth between Taskmaster setting up and preparing to go do this fight versus in the fight. And I'll get into how that's layered really well in a bit. Of course, Taskmaster ends up alerting Coulson, and Hyperion gets called. I specifically love the panel where it gets called because they show Task's fist like make contact with Coulson's face right as he says Hyperion into his watch. And what's great is the next panel where Task flees the comic shop. He jumps through the window quite dramatically. And as he's running through the street, his monologue is so funny. Like this series is surprisingly really hilarious in like dark humor kind of ways. And he's just saying, Hyperion's coming. I'm going to die. But the thing is, I feel bad for laughing at that, considering how fucking brutal this fight gets. Now, this is the part where I have to give double props to Alessandro Vitti. His art is so great. I know I said it in the last episode, and it's just even better in this issue. Like, he takes the action, I guess you could say, like action movement panels, like to the next level. Like some of these panels are fucking great. Like one where Hyperion is punching Taskmaster like rapidly, and it just shows like the blur of his arm, and oh god, the art here is just stunning. But that's also the thing, is that the dialogue is also fucking great. Like, what more could you ask for? You get to experience how much of like an asshole Hyperion is, but you also get to experience Taskmaster being an asshole who knows he's going to lose the fight. And that's the thing, is the monologue here is just mint, because he's being brutally honest with himself. And I mean, the whole series is making me feel like I'm getting to know just Taskmaster as a character more. Obviously, it's going to have that effect, but I didn't think to this level. I did not think I would love Taskmaster as much as I do. Tony, I guess, is his name. He has a line here where he says, "You convince yourself that he's just a man, because a man you can beat, but he's not a man. He's God." Like, Jesus Christ. But that is the perfect setup. This is what I'm talking about with, we know to be scared of Hyperion, because he is not to be fucked with, and keeps proving it as he catches Task's sword just like it's nothing, and then just crushes it. As he is talking about how his sword can cut through anything, Hyperion literally crushes it like dust. Now, here's where the fight gets like really, really brutal. But at this point, I didn't know how Taskmaster was like going to win. You know, when certain characters walk into a fight, you kind of know how they're going to win, right? I guess with most Thor fights, you can assume how the method that he will win. But I had no clue. I had no idea how Task was actually going to beat him. And the way was pretty cool. So this is where one of the flashback sequences is paced really well. We flash back to Nick Fury giving Task essentially a piece of kryptonite, right? Because these guys are the Justice League, keep this in mind. And he gets like a little shard, like a green shard. So this is the aha moment where I'm like, okay, he's going to kryptonite him, but how? And this throws back to one of my favorite things about Taskmaster. He's an archer. He also is an archer, which the lore thing, if you really are curious, is he learned how to arch from Hawkeye. But that's neither here nor there. Task shoots and misses with the kryptonite arrow, but then it swings back around as a boomerang arrow and hits Hyperion right in the back, right when Hyperion was like peak underestimating Task. And this is probably the most brutal scene, is when Task gets up and he's just thinking, kill, cut his throat, bash his brains, kill, and just beating the living shit out of Hyperion. This scene is crazy. And one of the art tropes that I have to point out is how Task is bloodied, so bloodied throughout this fight. And he has a white outfit. And so it's just insanely, just awesome visually. I love looking at these panels. And shit, Taskmaster comes actually pretty close to just totally killing Hyperion right there. I almost wanted him to. Alas, he did not. And this is where we get some really great quotes as Nick Fury is like recalling Task, saying like, stand down, act fucking professional, and get in the car. And he like starts to just walk away, tripping and falling over himself. And these are some great lines. As he's standing over Hyperion, he just says, remember this, you're only alive because I have somewhere to be. And his text is all slurry and everything, just great writing. And then right before he collapses in front of Nick Fury's car, he just says, had to make him underestimate me and think I wasn't nothing. And then he says, but I showed him, I will show them all. Like, wow, that is some really great quotes that actually go a little deep into, I guess, just who Taskmaster is. So I loved the end of this book. Like, I seriously just obviously loved this book from head to toe. It was just so well paced and had just such a great ending. And that's not even the end, because we get one page at the end here because Black Widow is coming for that ass, connecting to the plot of the first issue. Like, just goddamn, I did not think that Fury and Taskmaster would ever be my new favorite duo. And like, honestly, that's how I feel about this whole series. Like, I am liking this series a lot more than I guess was giving it credit for walking into it. I figured it would be a fun mini and kind of that would be it. But this is turning out to be really something else. So I guess that's all I have to say. Next, we get Black Cat, apparently. She's on the next cover. So, hell, I guess we'll see how that goes. Okay, so this is where I peel the curtain back a little bit. I did the first half of this recording from the beginning all the way to my number 3 spot. And then I just came back after work because I did not allocate my time properly and just did numbers 2 and 1. So this has been interesting, but I am hoping that I can still have this out fairly early in the night tonight. So that being said, I'm sorry if this episode is super duper long. I'm going to take precautions next time to make it a little shorter. But I'm going to get up out of here. But before we do that, let's talk about what's coming out next week. Next week is going to be a little nuts. And because I'm so belated, it is actually going to be tomorrow. So what are we getting? We're getting Action Comics 1028. That is the finale of Action Comics. That's super exciting. Batman, White Knight, Harley Quinn. Number 3 should be good. I've been enjoying that. We're also getting one of the last few Death Metal tie-ins. Death Metal Secret Origin number 1. Something about Superboy Prime. That ought to be cool. We're getting Department of Truth number 4. I'm specifically eyeing for that Trad Moore cover. We'll see how I do about that. Then the last Peter J. Tomasi Detective Comics issue, 1033. That'll be, a finale in and of itself. Holy shit, we're getting so many finales. We're also getting Doctor Doom issue 10. I found out that it was ending today. That made me so sad. I thought that was ongoing. I thought it'd keep on going. But no, number 10 is the last issue. So, oh God, I'm going to have a lot of contenders for my number 1 next week. We're also getting JLD issue number 29. It's a Endless Winter tie-in. I probably won't understand it. I guess we'll see. Speaking of crazy events, though, we are getting King in Black number 2. Oh, holy shit. And speaking of oversized issues, I will also be getting the king-sized Conan number 1. That ought to be fun. I love me some Conan, as you guys know. And then on the indie tip, I'm getting Undiscovered Country 11 and Exo Manowar number 3. Wow. Okay. That is all I have for you guys this week. Like I said, sorry if that was super long, but hey, it's just more for you guys, I suppose. But thank you so much for listening. It means a lot to me that someone's out there, hanging out with me as I ramble about comics forever to nobody in this room. But I will catch you guys next week and see you around. And yeah, have a good one. I'll catch you later.